Thank you, Rachel, for the invite to speak. I'm highly honoured to be here. It feels very different being at a Verity conference on this side of the desk podium rather than sitting down enjoying you. As many of you will have read my profile in the blurb and on the Verity website, I've been on a bit of a journey the last 4 years. I've now just recently started up my own company, bigpictureliving.co.uk, so check that out, but not while I'm speaking. This was me 4 years ago, weighing 23.5 stone. I had a BMI of 52. I was really extremely depressed, suicidal, self-harming, and was an extremely compulsive overeater. To cope with life, I would think of nothing of eating 2 big gateaux, 12 Mars ice creams, you name it, I would get through it, all in the name of just trying to cope with life. So life wasn't very easy. Going back, you'll pick up from my accent, although I've lived in South Yorkshire for 11 years, I've still got my Essex accent. So I say now and out, but it's still with an Essex accent. And Uncle Sharon as well. So all the Essex girl jokes about Sharon and Tracy, I've just claimed a disclaimer. I haven't got white stiletto shoes on. Just know. So my family has a history of being overweight. We have a history of diabetes. We have a history of heart problems. So right from the age of 5 years old, I can remember being taken by my mum to see the hospital dietitian, and I can remember being paraded in my vest and knickers through the waiting room. I had to be weighed in the waiting room. The weight was chalked up on a notice board, and very quickly I learned that if I lost weight, I was a good girl, but if I put on weight, I was a bad girl. And I quickly learned that food was a good way to cope with all the emotions about just life. I came from a family that didn't really talk about their emotions. We didn't really talk about anything personal. It was a loving family, and my mum and dad loved me very much. But as a family, we didn't communicate on a very deep level. So when I started with PCOS symptoms at the age of 13 to 14, already that's an awkward age for any child, adolescent, but I then wasn't having periods. I started growing the facial hair and the extra body hair. I had mood swings and depression, and I was also extremely heavy by then. Roughly, I was putting on a stone in weight for every year I got old. So at the age of 14, I weighed 14 stone. Not having periods isolated me from all my friends at school. I mean, we've been talking a little bit today about friends saying, oh, you're lucky not having periods. But because of the facial hair, my nickname at school was Gillette. And I remember one day in an art and craft class, one of the lads brought me a Gillette advert for a shaver. He said, there you go, Sharon, that's what you need. And I was just mortified. I just wanted the ground to swallow me up and die. So not having periods, being ostracised and teased at school. I was also teased about my weight, as you know, most big kids are. So the mood swings and the depression just got worse and worse, added to the actual shame and all the confusion. So I was like, you know, what's going on with me? Am I a man? Am I a woman? And I just could not bring myself to express all those feelings, all those emotions. And even now, talking about it, I can feel, you know, you do get really worked up and stressed. It was a real tough time going through adolescence. However, at the age of 22, so, you know, a good 6, 7, 8 years after I'd started growing the facial hair, still not a single period, I eventually plucked up the courage to go to my local GP. And bless her, she was an older lady, so quite a traditional GP. And she just took one look at me, she ran her hand down my face, she listened to just the fact that I'd not had any periods, and she said, I highly suspect you've got polycystic ovary syndrome. And like a lot of people, you're like, what's that? Never heard of it. have you got any information for me? No. So I'm like, oh, great. I was very quickly referred to a gynecologist, and I had the ultrasound scan and blood tests. And as you can see, my testosterone level at that time was 9.1. The 0.5 to 2.6 is the normal range for a woman. So I was like way off the scale. And my other hormones, the LH, the FSH, they were all totally skew as well. So there started over the next 3 years a whole mixture of treatments. Some of them, obviously the names that have been bantered around today, we're all quite familiar with them. The problem with me was that I was obese by this time. There had been a lot of time between my onset of my first symptoms and diagnosis. So none of these really worked for me at all. They weren't really altering my hormone levels. They certainly weren't altering my facial hair problem, which to me was the hugest, the biggest problem. So I was shaving at least twice a day. And as we've heard, you know, for a woman to shave their face, it's just not good. And I from a young age, I banned mirrors. I just could not face looking at myself in the mirror. And again, that just compounded the depression, the feelings of insecurity, the low self-esteem, and the fact that now I was confusing all these consultants because the medication that, you know, worked for everybody else wasn't working for me. So in 1994, at the age of 25, I had a bilateral ovarian biopsy. I was still living down in Chelmsford in Essex, so I was referred to Professor Grossman, who worked at St Bartholomew's Hospital in London, which was where I had the operation, because they were so convinced that I'd got something really sinister, like ovarian cancer, because the treatments just weren't producing any results at all. I also had blood taken from adrenal glands under a local anaesthetic, which was traumatic, to say the least. If any of you have had it done, they put it in a vein in the groin, and you feel the tubes going up inside you, and you're laying there conscious on this table. And I had so many consultants, medical students around me, and I was laying there, I couldn't move, and I just remember the tears were trickling down my face, and I just felt, you know, there's got to be more to life than this, you know, something needs to be done. The result of the biopsy was I had PCOS. There was nothing sinister, but I had it at extreme measures. Thankfully, I never suffered from acne. That's about the only symptom that I haven't had. In 2003, I moved up to Rotherham, South Yorkshire, and I started seeing, within a couple of months of moving there, I saw a wonderful team of endocrinologists and gynecologists in a joint clinic. And Mrs. Kumar, my consultant gynecologist, a wonderful woman, she now works in Swansea in Wales. And she took one look at me and realised that I was so extremely depressed that she said, we will fund you 18 treatments of laser funding. And when the letter actually came through, I remember opening it in my lounge and just dancing around the lounge. I was so happy, thinking, at last, there is a cure for my wretched, dreaded facial hair. I was also seen by a psychologist and says, yes, you're eligible for CPT, but there's a 3-year waiting list. So, which, you know, you can imagine, the NHS is brilliant, but mental health is very poorly serviced, in my personal opinion. And to be told you've got to wait 3 years for a crucial, in my opinion, treatment, I was really gutted, and that didn't help the depression. However, the laser funding was interesting. I had it done, although it was NHS funded, I had it done at a private hospital in Sheffield. And the first appointment, I was told it would be fairly painful, a bit like an elastic band being flicked at your skin. Now, has anybody in this room had laser treatment on their face? Yeah, so you're all there with me. Okay. Now, I don't know how many of you found it excruciatingly painful. But after the first, we literally started on this side, and we'd literally done about 10 clicks of the laser, and I passed out with the pain. Now, I thought that I had a reasonably high pain threshold, but it took them quite a long time to calm me down, bring me round, and it was 2 hours before they would let me leave again. And I was extremely hesitant to go back. I can't go through this again. And it wasn't just the pain, it was the whole trauma, the stigmatism. Bearing in mind, I still wasn't really talking to anybody, I had no emotional support, and I found the whole thing traumatic. The only thing that kept me going back to my 6 weekly appointments was very quickly, I saw it was working. Fortunately, I have pale skin and the hair was very thick and black, so I was an ideal candidate for laser treatment. And we had the 18 treatments over that period of a year or so. At that time, talking with my consultant, Mrs. Kumar, and our endocrinologist, Dr. Frank, not our Dr. Frank, I hasten to add, they encouraged me. They said, well, have you heard of therapy? And at the time I hadn't. So I did some research and I thought, oh, there's not a group, not an area in my group. I need support. So just being purely selfish, I thought I'm going to set up a group. So liaised with Verity and started up the Rotherham group, and it is still running. So anybody in Rotherham, Sheffield, Leeds, Barnsley, Doncaster areas, we're your women. Yes, get in touch. And that really helped because Mrs. Kumar gave us a room at the hospital free of charge. The specialists and the consultants were coming in and they were giving talks. And we started off with a group of about 30 women. And just to be able to sit with people that knew exactly what you were going on with, the problems with periods, fertility, partners, boyfriends, facial hair, the whole gamut of things that we have to go through and put up with, to be able to speak with somebody who knew exactly what was going on, as most of you probably know, is unimaginable, and the support was brilliant, both from the group and from Verity. But my compulsive eating still carried on at desperate levels. So by summer 2010, I was 23.5 stone, suicidal and desperate. I hadn't been able to hold down the job for much longer than 6 months because I had such low self-esteem. So I thought, well, you know, by 6 months in, the employer's starting to get to know the real me. And because I didn't like myself and had no confidence, I thought, well, they're just going to see me and realise I'm no good, and they're going to sack me. So I used to leave the job before that happened. So, but the job that I was in, the summer of 2010, I was working with a colleague, and he'd been in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And over the past couple of years that I'd known him, he had totally changed his life. He was glowing with health, and he was really enjoying life. And he was quite open about his recovery. And eventually, one day in the summer, I plucked up the courage and I said, look, your problem with alcohol, I have with food. So he said, well, there's OA. And I'm like, what? And I'd never heard of it. Has anybody heard of Overeaters Anonymous? A few. That's good. That's good. So, but I thought, well, I'm so far gone, I'm past help. I am beyond help. There's nobody going to change my life. You know, this is it now. So I sat on it for a few months, and then the end of October, again, I got so desperate. So I got on the internet, found there was a group in Sheffield, phoned up the woman. I said, look, I've got a problem with food, but I'm so nervous. You know, I want to come to tonight's meeting, but I don't think I can get there. So she said, well, take courage. She says, everybody here is really friendly. You don't need to share anything. You don't need to do anything. Just come along. So that day, I got through 2 whole gattos, just trying to get my confidence up to go to this meeting. I drove to the meeting. I had no idea, no recollection of it at all. I got to the meeting and I managed to get in the door, and the lady there was looking out for me, and we sat down. Don't remember anything about the meeting. There were about 7 of us there. Can't remember a thing apart from one lady saying that she'd been in OA about 6 months, and when she joined, she thought she was beyond help. But she says, I kept coming back and it works. And that triggered in my brain. I'm thinking, well, if she thought she was beyond help, and she's so much better now. Maybe there is a chance. So I kept going back. I got a sponsor. We went through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is exactly the same in all 12-step support groups, except you change your substance to whatever you're struggling with. So for the first time in my life, me and my sponsor, we started looking at the whole reason why I was overeating. And that was really scary. By this time, I was 41 years old, and you can imagine, 40 years of pushing down every single feeling, emotion, and problem, and just eating on it. So to start to unravel all that was horrendous. But in that first year, I managed to lose 4.5 stone, simply by trying not to binge so much and trying to deal with my emotions in a proper way. So we then fast forward up to November 2011. So I've been in OA for a year, and I'm sitting at work. I think it was a Thursday afternoon, towards the end of November. And just before I leave work, I thought, I'll just check the emails. Tapped in, there was an email from Rachel. And that email was very brief. She said, look, we've had an inquiry from a TV company that want to do a program about PCOS and facial hair. Are you up for it? So I thought, oh yeah, why not? So, because I thought, well, they'll be filming down in London. I'm up in Yorkshire. They're going to pick somebody closer down south. So really, I tapped back and said yes, without really thinking, nothing will come of it. That evening, the TV researcher is on the phone. We have a half-hour phone interview. And the next week, she says, yes, you're absolutely perfect. She said, can we have access to your medical records? We just need to check that you're okay to take part. So I said, yes, that was fine. And the following Saturday, I was down in London, filming. Now, who recognises these two gentlemen or recognises the names? Oh, Chris, there's only 1 or 2 hands. You will be proud. Chris is currently on Trust Me, I'm a Doctor with Dr. Michael Mosley. So the next programme is on next Wednesday at BBC 2, 8 o'clock. And they also run the Kids BAFTA award-winning programme Operation Ouch on CBBC. The 3rd series is about to start in a few weeks' time. Anyway, I haven't got a television, and I didn't have it then. I didn't recognise these two guys. Anyway, I was waiting outside the TV studio, and Zand, the one on the left, walked past me. And he said, hi, Sharon. He said, I'm not ignoring you, but we have to meet on set. And he just carried off. So I turned to the TV researcher next to me. I said, who was that? And she said, well, that's one of the doctors you're going to be working with. I'm like, whoa! And she said, well, it gets even better than that. She says, the other doctor you're working with is his identical twin brother. Christmas and birthday, God good to us. So for that, I'm eternally grateful. Anyway, so the programme was filmed over 5 weeks. The basis of the programme, which was called Witch Doctor, the Chris and Zand are both doctors. Zand is very traditional. His method of approach is keep taking the tablets, and he offered me some laser funding treatment. Chris, bless him, is the radical one. And he said, what do you actually want from this programme? So I thought for a minute, the cameras were running in my face. I'm thinking, how honest do I be? And I looked at him, my legs sort of went, ugh. And I thought, well, what have I got to lose? So I was honest. So I said, well, there's 3 things. I want to get fit, I want to get my life back, and I want to get married. Well, to cut a long story short, I've got a lot fitter, I've got my life back, and Chris has got married. So the programme went out for 5 weeks. Chris's treatment plan for me was to take me off some of my blood pressure medication. Again, I'm under medical condition. I don't advocate anybody coming off medication, just cover myself and verity. Under medical supervision, I came off of some of my blood pressure tablets and started work with a personal trainer at the gym. And over the 5 weeks of the filming, I'd lost about a stone. Bearing in mind this was over Christmas and New Year, and I'd still lost a stone. Went back after the 5 weeks filming, and signed off. Everything was fine. A couple of weeks later, Chris gave me a ring, and he said, Sharon, he said, me and Zand have been talking, and we're very impressed with your commitment to getting fit and getting your life back. How would you feel about just personally working with me on a one-to-one basis, no contract, no TV, just personally out of goodwill, working with you for the next 2 years to get you fit and down to an ideal weight? So I'm like, oh, give me a few seconds to think about it. Yes, I'll do it. So that's what's happened. And Chris takes a very holistic approach, and it very much follows my own belief that you can't tackle weight loss purely by looking at diet and food. It has to be a whole life thing. So it encourages exercise, it encompasses dealing with your emotional stuff, and also your spiritual life. I've been a practicing Christian since I was 12 years old, and it has been a personal relationship with God, not just a religious thing on a Sunday. And for me, that has also really helped. It's finding and coming to accept that there is a God who is interested in me and has a really good plan for my life, and that he wants to help me to get better and better. And when things have been really tough, and trust me, some of the stuff that I've done and had to face has been extremely tough. And for me, when I've come to the end of my own resources, when that I cannot sort of summon up enough to get over this problem, that's the time when I've prayed and asked God to help, and he's come through time and time again. So for me, it has to be holistic. Part of the physical challenges has been to do things that I haven't been able to do when I was big. So I've climbed up Penny Fan in the Brecon Beacons, done it in December. Took me 4 hours to get to the summit. Couldn't see a blooming thing from the top because of all cloud cover. And I've overcome my incredible fear about going underwater by doing a scuba dive, as you do. And one of the things that Chris has gone into is that when you feel pain in a particular part of your body, to distract you from that pain, you go through another pain, a different pain. And I just want to show you a clip, a preview that's coming up in this coming Wednesday's Trust Me, I'm a Doctor, which just illustrates a little bit of pain and will also encourage us, because it talks about hair removal. So, talking about it.
I don't know if it'll work. It's going to be touchy bad.
You need to watch Trust Me, I'm a Doctor. BBC Two next Wednesday. It's not a promotional plug. In this clip, or if you write down that clip, you could go and check it. It's on YouTube. It is a wonderful, wonderful 5-minute clip of Chris having his legs waxed. And at the time, he'd got a really painful knee, and the theory that he was trying out, experimenting on himself as a doctor, was that to take his mind off the knee pain, he would have his legs waxed. And it's fantastic because it really hurt. It made me smile. And I'm like, yes, that's sort of a little bit of revenge for everything that he's put me through over the years. So go and have a look at it. It is fascinating. And it talks about the idea of, he was comparing, he waxed one leg and shaved the other leg. Now, he had incredibly hairy legs, and it was an interesting experiment. And I saw him a month after he'd done it. And the idea was that waxing would bring back the hairs nice and soft and smooth, and shaving it would bring it out coarse. But you could not tell which leg had been waxed and which had been shaved. It's an interesting thing. Anyway, have a look. So, progress today. I said I've been on quite a journey. and it certainly has. Last summer of 2013, I got made redundant from my admin job. And as part of my redundancy, the job centre said, well, we can send you on some training. What would you like to do? So I was just talking about what I liked and said, well, I enjoy going to the gym. You know, I've lost this weight. So they said, well, we can fund you for your level 2 fitness instructor. I'm like, yeah, okay. So off I went and I got my qualification as a fitness instructor. And people that had followed me on Facebook and had known me over the years were saying, Sharon, you know, you have motivated us to do this, you've inspired us to do this, because of you, we've done this. And they said, you really ought to take it up as a business. So I then went on and I got my level 3 personal training qualification. I then went on and got the other instructions, qualifications, and then done level 3 exercise referral, which qualifies me to deal with, to train people with different medical conditions. So one of them is obesity, one is diabetes, asthma, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, joint problems, lower back pain, depression. So that's what that qualification is. And I'm soon to do my group indoor cycling or spin classes as they're known. So I did all my training with a company called Envisage. And at the end of the exercise referral course, once I'd been given my result, I passed. Sarah, one of the directors, who's sitting down in front here, she came up to me, she said, Sharon, can I have a word? I'm like, oh dear, you know, what is it? You know, you've told me I've passed, what have I done wrong? And to cut a long story short, she said, how would you like to come and work for us? I'm like, oh, no, wasn't expecting that. So I'm now doing teaching with them. I'm currently going through my assessor qualification, so I will also be assessing the gym instructors and personal trainers. In July, I launched my own company, went self-employed. So I do motivational speaking, I run courses, I'm currently writing a couple of books. There's ongoing projects, different things going on. And then early next year, I want to go on and do my level 4 in obesity and diabetes. Because of my PCOS, I am still insulin resistant, although having lost 10 stone, that has made a huge difference. And I was on 2.5 grams of metformin a day to help with the insulin resistance and weight loss. That is now down to 500 milligrams a day. I'm off all of my blood pressure tablets, I'm off my cholesterol tablets, and I'm really making up for lost time at the moment. So, I was also asked to talk about practical steps for nutrition and weight loss. Now, I feel a little bit before, I don't see myself as an expert, and I don't particularly see myself as a success story. According to the BMI, I've got another 2.5 stone to lose, and I tell you, I am finding it so difficult to lose this final couple of stone. I've got down, you know, lost 10 stone, and I've kept that weight for just over a year now. But do you think I can lose any more? And I'm really struggling. So the team at Envisage, we've come up with some ideas to get my weight loss back on. But things that I would encourage you, small steps done regularly make a big difference. Now, when I was on the exercise referral course, Sarah came up with a really good illustration of this. And it was, admittedly, with a lot of televisions now, they haven't got buttons. But instead of using the remote control, you get up, you walk over to the television, and you either change the channel, change the volume, or whatever. Doing that every day for a year will save you 3,500 calories, which doesn't sound much, but that is 1 pound of fat. So if you want to lose a pound in weight, you have to get rid of 3,500 calories. Now you imagine that over a year, 2 years, 40 years, so 42 years, you've saved yourself 3 stone in weight just by using the remote control. So small steps done regularly make a big difference. Another tip for nutrition and weight loss, find something you enjoy. If you're not going to enjoy your food program that you're on, or if you don't enjoy the exercise that you're doing, you won't maintain it. You know, it's not rocket science. We like doing things, and if we don't like doing something, we won't do it. So find something that you enjoy. Tap into your hobbies. Try and think of something. Even if you can't do it now, have it as a goal to aim for. And find someone to do it with. It will help with your accountability, so you'll be less likely to slack off and stop. And it also helps with your motivation, because you feel that you're letting that person down. When you're flagging, they can encourage you, and vice versa. And as many of you will have known, when you actually reach out and help somebody else, even though you are struggling, you feel better just because you've helped somebody else, and that lifts you up as well. And an acronym that we use in OA is FEAR, fear. You can either fear everything and run, or face everything and recover. And I was a big procrastinator. I would put off everything. And when I knew that I was putting off something, I then started to worry about it. It became self-conscious at the back of my mind, and I would start to eat on it. And obviously that's not good. So I would encourage you, just do it. It's so much easier to face something head on than put it to the back of your mind, and it disturbs your sleep, it disturbs your peace during the day. So reach out and ask for help with it if you can't face it on your own. You know, for me, it's a strong person that says, look, I can't do this on my own, can you help me? It's not a sign of weakness, in my opinion. Another tip that I would say with weight loss and nutrition is journal, food diaries. Now you can use electronic apps on your phone to log your food. Some people take photos of their food instead of just logging it because it's quicker. Just get your phone out, snap, done. But I find, and I'm the same, you know, I can say, well, I've eaten healthily today, but the weight's not come off. And you know deep down that you've snuck in something that you shouldn't have done. And okay, keeping a journal, you can still lie, but it really helps. When you've got something in black and white in front of you, it can help to identify problems, habits that form. I used to binge when I was in the car. So I would drive to the supermarket, buy all my binge foods, sit in the car park and eat. So one of my lifestyle changes is that I walk more. So when I first met Chris, I could barely walk across a car park. Now, you know, I do 12-mile hikes, not really batting an eyelid, but so being more physically active throughout the day. So it doesn't mean loads and loads of gym sessions, although a gym session with a personal trainer is very good. But be more active. Journal your actions through the day. I've mentioned prayer and meditation. Chris is an advocate of mindfulness, which is a way of staying in the moment and just appreciating what's around you, and also controlling your breathing so your anxiety levels reduce. And you are worth putting in that amount of time to improve your health. Don't see it as something that is really negative, but seeing that time spent journaling, meditating, praying, you know, that is time to help your health. Your PCOS symptoms will get better. So the stress, the depression is helped. For me, just being more active helped with the weight loss. It helped with the depression. And so many things. As for me, cutting out sugar is a big thing. You know, I could sniff sugar and put on 2 pounds quite easily. So when it comes to nutrition, the NHS Eat Well plate is a very good basic recommendation. Breaking up with carbs and protein and fat. And we've already heard today about how it's good to eat a low GI food diet. So eating your complex carbohydrates, so your whole grains, rather than your white goods. And there is some research that I'm just getting into at the moment that says for a PCOS woman, it might well be recommended to eat a higher level of protein and a lower level of carbohydrate, simply because protein can affect insulin resistance. and the lower level of carbs will also help the problem. But again, each one of us is personal. I mean, we've all been on similar drugs and had totally different reactions to them. Nutrition and exercise it's a one-off prescription for each one of you. It's very much, you take the guidelines that are recommended to you, you experiment. You know, which is, again, where a food diary and a journal comes in really good, because you can log what you've eaten, you can log your activity, and then over the week you look back and you see how it's changed your cycle, you see how it's changed your mood, you see what effect it's had on all your varying symptoms. So, although I have a nutrition for physical activity qualification, I say follow the basic guidelines and then just adjust it for yourself. Your body will react differently to mine. You might not have such a problem with sugar as I do. You might have a different problem. So take the advice, tweak it, experiment. Again, don't be frightened to take some advice and go to your GP, go to your consultant, log on to my website and sort of fire off different questions. Go to Verity and ask, take their resources. There are so many more good resources out there now than there were even 10 years ago. So just go for it. I would thank you for listening. That is my website, that's my email. I Twitter occasionally, although I'm a lot more prolific on Facebook. But if anything I can leave you with, it is there is hope. You know, it breaks my heart every time I hear that a woman has had a diagnosis of PCOS and they're told, this is it, there's no cure, you'll never have kids, you're stuck with it, get used to it. Because there is so much you can do. You know, join Verity, get their support, get involved with the forum, get involved in a local group, experiment. It's one of the really self-empowering illnesses that we can suffer from. There is so much that each one of us can do to help our symptoms. And for several years, I kept hearing, you know, if only you lose weight, your symptoms will get better. And I'm like, well, I can't lose weight. But starting with one small step, so each of you that needs to lose weight, that wants to lose weight, think of one small step that you can do. And just keep that going for 1 week, for 2 weeks. Then add another little step and just keep it going. It's not glamorous, it's not a quick fix. There are no good, healthy, quick fixes. It is a long, hard slog, but it gets you there eventually. And if you do it carefully, you're doing it through lifestyle changes, so you're thinking about your whole life. Because let's face it, PCOS involves our whole life. But it doesn't have to control it. We are in control, or we can be in control. So get on the website, get in touch. I'm open for speaking engagements, so that's the plug. Any questions?
No questions, seriously. What was the hardest part of losing 10 stone?
It's funny, I was saying to Sarah in the coffee break, I feel a bit of a fraud because this 2 stone is a lot harder to shift than the 10 stone. Coming down from 23.5 stone, yes, the emotional side of it was really hard because, you know, when you're losing weight, people don't talk about physical stuff. You know, it's nice to get glamorous clothes, you know, but they don't talk about the emotional side of it, how people react to you. People react so much differently to me now than when I was 23.5 stone. You know, blokes give me a second look for the right reason, not just to tease me. And that took a heck of a long time to get used to. I'm like, whoa, you know, what's going on here? I don't get off at the front seat of cars anymore. I have to, you know, plummet in the back seat of cars. And and people's attitude to you, they talk to you differently when you're a sort of a more normal size than when you are big. Physical activity becomes a whole lot more enjoyable because, you know, you can move your body better and everything feels better. I mean, different physical challenges that I have done. I mean, a friend of mine last year said to me, do you know, most people get all this rebellious sort of adrenaline junkie stuff out of the way sort of in their late teens. He said, you're doing it in your 40s. And I said, too blooming right. I said, I'm making up for lost time. And I'm just, if you take nothing else, just take, there is hope, there is a chance. You can, however desperate you feel, there is always something that you can do. And yes, it's hard, but, you know, take charge, make that one small step, and things will get better. Does that answer your question?
It does. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you.